Number 10. Jumping from the explosion in slow motion. There is an unwritten law in action cinema. If something explodes behind you, never look back. Just run, preferably in slow motion, with your jacket flapping and the fire illuminating your heroic silhouette. It's almost poetic until you remember that, in real life, the heat of the explosion would reach you even before the dramatic boom. While the cinematic hero leaps unharmed, you'd probably be thrown out like human popcorn. And not the crunchy, delicious kind, more like the burnt, sad kind at the bottom of the bucket. In movies, physics takes a vacation. Shockwaves respect the protagonist, fire behaves, and dust never gets in your eyes. In reality, the air would be sucked out, your eardrum would burst, and you'd land with the same glamour as a deflating gas station dummy. And worst of all, no soundtrack to save the moment. So yes, jumping from an explosion feels epic. But off-screen, it's just a very expensive and painful way to discover that reality has no replay button. Number 9. The heroic torn t-shirt tourniquet. In action movies, no one needs emergency care. All it takes is an old t-shirt and willpower. The hero gets shot, tears his sleeve with his teeth, makes a makeshift knot, and voila! The bleeding stops, he stands up, faces the horizon, and still has the energy to save the planet. A textile miracle. In real life, this trick only serves to turn the arm into a pressed sausage. Too tight and it cuts off circulation. Too little, and the blood continues to gush, but with cinematic style. The scene is always the same: sweat, pain, dramatic close-ups, and a sad soundtrack. But off-screen, the only sound would be your blood pressure dropping. And the fabric? Dirty, contaminated, a gentle invitation for infection to knock on the door. Doctors would see it and faint before you. So don't be fooled by heroes who stop bleeding with scraps of clothing. In real life, a homemade tourniquet won't save you. It just guarantees more work for the hospital and fewer limbs for you. Numbert, the lighter that turns into a magic lantern. Every horror movie protagonist seems to carry the most powerful lighter on the planet. He enters a dark cave, lights the tiny flame, and voila, illuminates the entire room, revealing tunnels, traps, and, of course, the monster breathing behind him. But in real life, a lighter only lights your own finger, and it gets so hot that you discover pain in a very intimate way. The flame flickers, the oxygen drains, and the real-life hero starts coughing before he can see his hand in front of him. In movies, fire is poetic. Outside of them, it's an invitation to first-degree burns. And if you're in an enclosed space, congratulations. You're not only lost, but also intoxicated. Movies make it seem easy. One click, and the world shines. But the lighter isn't a magic wand. It's just a stubborn spark. Moral of the story? If you're exploring a dark hole, bring a flashlight. Or accept your fate. Become the character who disappears into the shadows in the very first scene. Number 7. Run in a straight line from giant danger. It doesn't matter if it's a dinosaur, a fireball, or a runaway truck. The instinct of movie characters is always the same: to run in a straight line. No turning to the side, no thinking, just running, stumbling, and screaming. It's almost a ritual of cinematic stupidity. The creature comes after them, the camera shakes, and the audience holds their breath. But if the character had taken 2 steps to the side, the film would be over in 30 seconds. In real life, running in a straight line from something much larger than you is essentially fulfilling the natural selection curriculum. The logic is simple: if danger comes from one direction, get away from it. But no, cinema prefers the drama of a desperate race, with screams and dust rising, because suspense trumps common sense. So, the next time the world seems to be falling apart behind you, remember, the safest path may be just a step to the side. And if the sound of destruction keeps growing, well, at least you won't die doing useless cardio. Number 6. The miraculous rolling of impossible falls. In movies, falling from a building, a bridge, or a helicopter is never a problem. The hero just needs to do that magical roll to the ground, and presto, survives unharmed. Perhaps with a slight shoulder ache just to maintain realism. It's as if the human body were made of springs and hope. But in real life, this trick only works if you're made of rubber or, I don't know, a cat with a heavenly health plan. Physics is merciless. With every meter of fall, your speed increases, and the impact becomes a direct conversation with the ground. This so-called rolling only serves to spread the pain to more parts of your body before you pass out. But in the movies, the protagonist gets up, dusts himself off, and still finds time for a sarcastic quip. In practice, falling from 5 meters can turn you into a sandwich of bones and regret. So, if your escape plan involves height and phrases like, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing," know this: the only guaranteed role is the stretcher to the hospital. Number 5. Breathing underwater with an imaginary straw. Nothing is more classic than the hero hiding in the lake, calmly breathing through a straw or a piece of bamboo while enemies pass by just above. A scene full of tension, dramatic bubbles, and zero logic. Because, spoiler alert, it simply doesn't work. The water pressure increases so quickly that just a few feet deep, your lungs would refuse to cooperate. Trying to suck air through a submerged tube is like trying to drink a cement milkshake. In the movies, everything's elegant. The invisible good guy, the outwitted villain, the audience holding their breath. In real life, you'd die before the soundtrack started. The tube would clog, water would rush in, and panic would ensue. And honestly, there's nothing heroic about floating like a poorly designed inflatable doll. So if the idea is to hide, find a rock, some shade, or just run. Because breathing through a straw may seem clever, but in practice, it's just a creative way to drown yourself in cinematic style. Number 4. Cauterize wounds with alcohol and courage. The scene is always the same. The hero is injured, sweating, gasping for breath, and decides he doesn't need a hospital. He has whiskey. He pours the liquid into the wound, screams as if exorcising his own body, and then stitches it all up with a rusty needle. There, problem solved. In the movies, this is a symbol of strength. In real life, it's just an excellent way to get an infection that would be the envy of any laboratory. Alcohol does burn, but it doesn't kill all the microbes. In fact, it damages the tissue further, worsening the wound. And if you decide to cauterize with fire, congratulations. Besides hurting, you've just cooked your own skin over a slow fire. The fictional hero gets up, drinks the rest of his whiskey, and continues saving the world. You, on the other hand, probably pass out and wake up in the emergency room smelling like human barbecue. Moral of the story, the only wound alcohol treats well is the emotional one, and even then, only until the next day. Number 3, shoot the gas tank and wait for the epic explosion. Every movie villain dies the same way. Someone shoots at the car, the gas tank explodes, and boom, a fireball beautiful enough to win an Oscar for special effects. But in real life, this trick is pure pyrotechnic fantasy. Gasoline is flammable, but not explosive. You can shoot at the tank all day, and at most, you'll make a hole that turns the car into a watering hole for expensive fuel. The myth stems from ignorance of physics and Hollywood's love of gratuitous explosions. For gasoline to ignite, intense heat or a spark is needed, and a gunshot doesn't always produce that. In other words, the hero who hits the tank and solves everything isn't a genius. He's just lucky in a lazy script. And if by chance you try to recreate the scene, the only guaranteed explosion will be your bank account and perhaps the firefighter's patience. In movies, the logic is simple. If it's not dramatic, it's not worth it. In real life, the noise you'll hear is the insurance company denying coverage. Number 2, the magical resurrection of cardiac massage. In movies, the hero simply presses twice on his friend's chest, shouts, "Stay with me," and, like a Hollywood-sponsored miracle, the dead man opens his eyes and starts joking. It's beautiful, moving, and completely impossible. In real life, CPR is anything but glamorous. It involves strength, sweat, and breaking bones, and yet it rarely works without medical equipment. Fiction sells the idea that the heart is an on-off switch. Press it, shake it, and voila, it starts working again. But the human body isn't a toaster. If the heart has stopped, it's because the problem is far more serious than a lack of dramatic encouragement. And that mouth-to-mouth kiss? These days, it's more likely to transmit the flu than to save someone. But of course, cinema prefers miracles to realism. After all, who wants to watch 15 minutes of failed compressions when you could see a tear, a "he's back," and an epic soundtrack? Too bad, off-screen, the only sound you'd hear would be the defibrillator, and the embarrassment if it doesn't work. Number 1, jumping out of a plane without a parachute and finding a way. The pinnacle of cinematic insanity is always the same. The hero jumps out of a plane without a parachute, plunges into the wind at 200 km/h, and somehow reaches another body in free fall to borrow their equipment. It's the kind of scene that blends physics, faith, and a non-existent insurance policy. In the movies, they embrace in midair, share the parachute, and even have time to discuss their relationship before landing perfectly. In reality, It would just be two bodies colliding with enough force to transform into a human meteorite. The physics are clear. No one catches up with anyone else in freefall. They both fall at the same speed. And trying to open the parachute after this suicidal embrace would probably rip everything apart. The result? An epic landing, straight to the ground. But of course, cinema has no room for gravity, only for miracles and good camera angles. So, if someone ever says, "Trust me, you can figure it out," remember, the only sure way to survive a fall like that is not to jump. Or, at most, jump onto the couch and watch someone else do it for you.